nowadays, I debate some of the people that say you should just add weights to the bar slowly and not change a bunch of stuff. All right, so the method that we kind of just explained, where you would typically drop back to like a week 2 type of loading paradigm and back to your MEV, you would discount it for increased novelty. So if it's a different exercise, if it's a different rep range, if it's a different exercise order, you would discount it. Now that's very important because remember, exercise order is a huge discounter of load. It's a very junior mistake, but people still make it, so I'm going to say it. Be like, oh man, I normally can squat 100 for 4x12, but man, that crushed me for 8s. I'm like, oh, what happened? Like, it's always mysterious. Oh my God, I do this so long. They're like, well, I did it after leg press this time. Like, oh my God. So you're saying with half of your normal capacity in glycogen storage or whatever, you couldn't do normal? This is insane. Like, you start a leg press doing like 18 reps, and by the last set, you're doing 7 reps. You're really expected to just do the same in your squat after. So exercise order is huge. If you vary exercise order, which you should be every now and again, it's one of those normal ways to introduce variation, then you should make sure to discount that as well. So if something is normally done at the end of a routine, but you bring it up to the beginning, you're going to have to. So for example, if you hit a PR on lateral raises after 3 sets of back and 1 set of upright rows, whatever weight you used, you can just, in week 4, the peak week, you could just go right to week 1 with that identical weight and reps if lateral raises are your first exercise on a shoulder day. Because you are so tired when you got to them that if you just go back to week 2, maybe you'll do like double the reps. I mean, this is stupid, right? So exercise order, loading, / repetition range, and exercise selection are all discounters for how much easier you need to go at the beginning to give yourself room. That's all good and well, and as you can start to see, it's going to take like quite a bit of calculation, and you're going to be off a lot, you're going to have to adjust, which is where keeping a historical record is super important. All the, science nerds like us, all the evidence-based people, we're really big on tracking. We don't just track because we're compulsive. We're also compulsive, but that has nothing to do with it. So we don't just write shit down to have shit written down. We write shit down for the express purpose of referring back to it, not only to check if we are progressing, but to arrange for future progressions. So for example, how do I know next time I come back to Smith machine feet forward squats for sets of 8, what load I should be starting at? Well, I have a whole mesocycle of those, actually 3 mesocycles done throughout the last 2 years, in which I have all my numbers from them. And I know that I've gotten stronger since each one of those mesos, because those mesos are separated by 3 or 4 mesos where I'm not doing that exercise or that rep range. I come back and I look at weeks 1, 2, and 3, and 4, where I hit my numbers or whatever, and usually I'll go, okay, so I started the last one, I ended the last one at 200 kilos for 5x8 or something like that. Week 2 was 195 kilos. This time, for week 1, I'm going to go to 197.5. Why? Because I should have, I want to do what week 2 was last time so I can hit an all-time PR, make sure to adjust for that rising overload curve, but also because I know I've got bigger legs since then, if I just go to 95, I could have done more, something like that. So yes, making all of those kind of logical adjustments to saying, okay, every little bit of novelty is going to be a little bit of a discount is good. You should always keep that in mind. Fundamentally, nothing beats tracking. You know what you've hit, you know what your last mesocycle looked like in that particular exercise order. So you can basically ask yourself the following question. Okay, you got leg press in this coming meso, and you don't know where to start as far as weights. It's a third exercise. You do deadlifts, then squats, then leg presses, let's just say. Go back to the last time that you did leg presses as a third exercise, preferably in the same kind of exercise order, but not even. Just 2 compound heavy basics before it. Okay, third exercise leg press, then you can compare the rep ranges. If they were the same, great, now you have some metrics to work off, and you go, okay, I'm just going to plan to hit a PR of that one by 10 kilos. And then you start nice and low, come up high, I mean, there's no surprises because you don't want to go back and be like, oh my God, like I could have hit a PR, I just didn't know about it. And you might not even know where to start. And a lot of times it's not even about, oh, I missed out on a PR. Like if your training is good, you're going to hit a PR of some kind. But you want to make sure you're hitting kind of directed adaptation. You want to hit the kind of PRs you want to hit. So if you're like, oh, I don't know what leg press sets to choose, and you want to choose sets of 12, but you make the wrong calculations and you do your first set and you have to stop at 12 because it was basically still a warm-up, or you get to 6 and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to hit failure at number 7, not a good thing. Mm-hmm. So nothing beats. So all of these things, all of these discounters, etc., as to where to start your stuff, especially for beginners and intermediates, they're great. For the advanced, nothing beats historical record. Nothing beats keeping a log, knowing your PRs, knowing your general physical condition, and planning to beat them by just a little bit.
Mm-hmm. No, fantastic. And I think that really covers a lot for every single person. I think actually a question I had that would help people out here, I think particularly, is your kind of definitions for that novice, intermediate, and advanced, just for people who are maybe confused, because there's a lot out there. But I think for people who are using this progression model that you're presenting, it's good to have your actual input there.
For sure. I always I've lost track of where I've published. I mean, I've never written a book on hypertrophy per se. There are some numbers that I don't come offhand. I don't remember what they were. A little bit I remember, mostly in powerlifting what they are. Mm-hmm. But in bodybuilding, I would say beginners, these are really rough averages because people, they adapt at different rates. Like some people adapt so continuously that they're basically still beginners. Yeah. Like they're never true beginners because they never had a growth spurt, but they adapt really well for 10 years. Like my physiology was like that. It's like I just kept getting better linearly for so long that I thought linear progression with no variation was the way to train. Yeah. Nowadays, I debate some of the people that say you should just add weights to the bar slowly and not change a bunch of stuff. It's comical to me that I debate them because I trained like them for 10 years and I got really good results. It just so happens that most people around me couldn't survive it when I programmed it for them because they were no longer adapting that quickly. So basically, I think that a very rough guide to keep in mind is who this applies to. And none of the rules are mutually exclusive anyway. They're all sort of spectrum rules. Mm-hmm. 1 to 3 or 0 to 3 years of training, beginner. And I would even say 1 to 3 years because what do you do in your first year? Just learn the lifts, practice good technique, do lots of sets and reps, and you'll get fucking huge or bigger.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about details then. But 1 to 3 years, I would say, is beginner. 3 to 6 or 3 to 8 years is intermediate for most people. And then 8 years plus, you get into different degrees of advanced. Cool. The stuff that changes the most after about 6 to 8 years of training isn't the training parameters, it's the fatigue management that becomes incrementally more important after that. Okay. So, and if you... So that basically I think covers it. So mm-hmm. just those are the average kind of numbers. So if you have been training, less than 5 years, beginner intermediate's where you should be looking to. If you've trained much longer than 5 years, a lot of the intermediate tips even are no longer going to work mm-hmm. optimally for you, and you're going to have to kind of put your ear to the street for, okay, what's these advanced tips, because I seem to be getting into that kind of realm.
Cool. And then I just wanted to clarify in terms of for the advanced person who's going mesocycle to mesocycle variation, I think you introduced not a new one to me, but a new way I didn't have maybe thought about it. Exercises, rep range, but also exercise order.
Yep.
Those are the main ways you'd see varied.
Yeah. You can also do variations in the kind of ways that you like. So you can do different kinds of sets. You can stop at a certain number of reps from failure per set. You can have set targets of 10, 10, 10, 10. You can do giant sets where it's all 2 reps back from failure, but you sum up a total volume. And there's progressing into drop sets, etc. So outside of those sort of techniques, I think that, so that kind of progression or the kind of difference in where you order your exercises is important. A lot of people don't kind of factor that in. And it's not something that you progress from one way of ordering exercises to another. They're all really fine ways, just basically more or less depending on what you're targeting, prioritizing. Yeah. Just don't make the junior mistake of thinking a squat is a squat is a squat, and your ability to squat isn't changed by what you do before it. Mm-hmm. If you're going to high bar squat, if you've leg pressed before it, you've basically taken your quad rep abilities and cut them in half mm-hmm. before you've added in the pretty fresh glutes, the pretty fresh hamstrings, pretty fresh lower back of squatting. So if you do leg press before squats, you'll notice that your quads feel like total shit, but everything else feels great, which is a lot of times why advanced people do that, is because if they went into squats fresh, their lower backs would limit them way before anything, or just axial loading would just sum too much fatigue. So that's a cool strategy for advanced. It's a fine strategy for beginners, but I think just doing a compound basics first is better there. Anyway, but it's one of those things like, just know that based on the order of exercises, you're going to be stronger and or weaker, which is one of the situations where like, it's just a real easy scenario to envision in your head. You walk into a gym and there's this gigantic bodybuilder training, and he's doing weights and reps that just don't look as impressive as you'd think. A number of situations can enter your head, hypotheses as to why it's unimpressive. One of them could be he's super dieted down and super close to a show, but you look and he's not that lean, and he seems like he has plenty of spunk, and he's like drinking, beverages and talking to people between sets, but close enough to a prep, stop talking to everyone, have nothing to say. Okay, it's not that. You have to ask the most important question is, how many exercises did he do before he got to that? And the second most important question is, how many work sets did he do of that close to failure before he got to that? Because I've done some pathetic fucking shit at the end of exercise. So for example, if I do metabolite leg training, I'll do so many reps of leg press or hack squat and so many squats after that, that by the time I get to lunges, oftentimes I'm doing unloaded lunges. I'm just stepping with my own body weight, and that is enough to sum up metabolites and actually do damage and actually cause growth. Whereas, my PR for walking lunges is I've done 110 kilos, 245-ish pounds, actually, 245. I've done 245 for like 5x12 in barbell walking lunges. I've done 275 for sets of 8 in barbell walking lunges. So you would think, how the fuck is he benefiting at all? Or how pathetic, how people walk, I train in tights sometimes. Some guy walking in with his quads are all over the place, and then I'm doing walking lunges. Are they going to, with no weight, are they going to be like, oh, that's how you get big legs, is walking lunges? They're going to try it. It's not going to work. But you haven't seen what I did before that, right? So relatively speaking, now walking lunges are fucking me up, from a metabolite perspective. So it's one of those situations, if you're tracking, if you're logging, if you're assigning loads to what you're doing, keep it in mind that your abilities will be degraded throughout that entire time. And that leads to two things. One, adjust the loads properly for hypertrophy so that you get the reps you want and the ranges you want. So if you normally lunge with 135 pounds for 10s, but now lunges are last in your program, and that's 135 for 10 first, start with 95 for 10s, because it's going to be well hard. And secondly, if your goal is strength, and I believe Dave Tate is the person I got this from. I don't know if he was the first to say it, maybe. I think he said, you're only good for about 1 or 2 really hard movements in any given training session. Everything else is just going to be assistance work. You just have to pound in the volume. Maximum efforts that get you stronger, only 1 or 2 moves. You're gonna do a front squat, you're gonna do a RDL. After that, whatever you think you're gonna do, you're not gonna do squats for sets of 5s and get strong, because you can't produce the forces that are high enough to get to that overload threshold. Because remember, for strength, this isn't set numbers, it's percent 1RM. It doesn't matter what you think you're doing. Sets of 5 at 60% 1RM is not strength training. It has to be usually 70-75% 1RM or above. So it's one of those situations where careful about how you build your programs, because if you're like, all right, I'm going to get stronger in this, I'm going to get stronger in that, you have 5 compound heavy lifts, whatever your 4th and 5th one is, unless you're a rank beginner, then it doesn't fucking matter at all, because you grow from anything, you're not going to get stronger doing that. So you might as well just take those big lifts and put them on another day when you're fresh.
And I guess that's similar to the concept of down sets, in that kind of, you do your top sets, then you have some down sets there for kind of volume to keep that volume high. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not interested in more volume, down sets are pointless. As a matter of fact, probably interfere with adaptations, because you could be recovering instead.
Brilliant. I think I just summarized this video, for me anyway, in terms of kind of progression. Should definitely be relative mesocycle to mesocycle for people. Novices are going to be increasing kind of their progression quicker, and then it slows down. Variation becomes way more important the more advanced you get, and you should probably be using it.
Yep. And it's that variation becomes independently more important. It doesn't become more important than progression, but you just have to, not that you said that, just to make sure we're clear, but it's just one of those things that you have to understand that hitting PRs every day in the gym is some shit that's going to happen when you're a beginner, and it's never going to happen again. And if you're trying to find a program that'll let you do that, you're looking down the wrong alley. Hit difficult workouts that every mesocycle on average hit you a PR of some sort within that rep range, etc. If you're advanced, it might be every 2 or 3 mesocycles that you're hitting PRs. Because you're using plenty of more variation, maybe you are hitting PRs every mesocycle, but they're going to be in different lifts and different variations, etc., because that's the only way you manage to make good growth at that point. If you try to keep training simpler when you're advanced, you're probably in for quite a bit of staleness.
Brilliant.